Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. Here are the headlines. Abuja to Kaduna train service to resume in November after 7 months of closure following terrorist attack. Federal Executive Council approves creation of database to track abandoned and uncompleted projects across the country. Chief Justice of Nigeria warns members against acts of recklessness and abuse of power by election tribunals. Plus, celebration in the air as Ukrainian flags fly in Kherson region after Russian troops withdraw. That's News Round in View. 7 months after it was suspended, train services on the Abuja-Kaduna rail line is set to resume this month. The Minister of Transportation, Mr. Muazu Sambo, disclosed this while presenting the scorecard of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration in the transportation sector since 2015. A service along the Abuja to Kaduna route was suspended following the attack by gunmen on a Kaduna-bound train at Katari in Kaduna State, which led to the death of 8 passengers and the abduction of over 100 passengers.
Mr. Muazu Sambo is the second guest to feature in the second edition of the PMB Scorecard 2015 to 2023 series, launched in October to showcase the achievement of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. The Minister of Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed, who is the host, begins the conversation with an address on how the ruling All Progressives Congress plans to campaign for the 2023 general elections.
The opposition is quick to point to some economic indices like the Naira exchange rate and inflation. But the truth is that if they were the ones confronted with having to fight a once-in-a-century pandemic, 2 economic recessions, and low oil prices, Nigeria would have had no economy to even talk about. Gentlemen, we have a lot of achievements to highlight and campaign with.
Next is the Minister of Transportation, who gives the scorecard of his ministry, cutting across the rail infrastructure, inland waterways, and the development of ports, including the Lekki Deep Sea Port, which it says will commence operation before the end of the year.
The Buhari administration also considered and approved the development of the Badagry Deep Sea Port, which upon completion would have about 2.5 kilometers of key length container terminal, half a kilometer key length of break bulk terminal, 360 meters key length of OSB terminal, and a minimum 18-meter draft. It is also expected to generate 250,000 direct jobs.
On March the 28th this year, scores of armed men attacked a train along the Abuja-Kaduna rail line, killing at least 8 passengers and abducting over 100 others. The development forced the Nigerian Railway Corporation to suspend train services on the Abuja-Kaduna route as security agencies and the government worked to secure the release of the kidnapped victims from captivity. A month ago, the last batch of 23 of the kidnapped victims were released, following which the Minister of Transportation says services on the Abuja-Kaduna train line will now resume.
Lessons have been learned, and these lessons will be put into place. What are the lessons? Safety and security, surveillance, constant monitoring, 24/7, 7 days a week, 12 months a year, all round clock. The minister should be able to sit in his office and look at the rail corridor and see what is happening there. The president should be able to do that. The Director General of the SSS should be able to do that, and so on, and all other security agencies. These are the measures we have put in place. And this month of November, we shall resume that service.
No specific date is given for the resumption, And as Channels Television pressed for more details, the Ministers of Information and that of Transportation react this way.
From which media?
Channels Television.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. What date in November specifically is the Abuja train service expected to resume?
I have answered the question inside, my brother. And I think you are the same person who asked.
The Abuja-Kaduna train service would resume in November. Would like to know specifically what date in November.
You know the hear word. I don't tell you, you know the hear word.
Although the federal government assures of safety of passengers, it's not certain what the patronage by Nigerians will look like when the Abuja-Kaduna train services resume. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
In view of the growing number of abandoned and uncompleted projects across the country, the Federal Executive Council has approved the creation of a database to address the matter. The National Capital Projects and Information System is to be headed by the Finance Minister to prioritize and fund selected projects on a yearly basis and possibly privatize some of the projects, repurpose others for alternative use and completely abandon others depending on the outcome of investigations. This formed part of the outcomes of the Council meeting presided over by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
For the third time in a row, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, presides over the Federal Executive Council meeting since the President has been away for medical checkup.
Which was also approved by.
The growing number of abandoned and uncompleted projects is one memo the Council addressed by setting up a database for improved tracking.
Council approved the setting up of a team, Council on the National Capital Projects Information System, which involves the key infrastructure ministries. And they are to look at and prioritize fund-selected projects on a yearly basis to completion, look at the possibility of maybe privatizing some of the projects or transfer of ownership to either state or local governments, how to repurpose the projects for alternative use, or completely abandon or dismantle the project and treat those as sunk cost.
According to him, the Council also approved 14.88 billion naira for the construction of a 12-story office block for the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
The construction of this building will save the Federal Inland Revenue Service about 4 billion naira yearly rent that they have been paying. And it will also help the Lagos State government to reduce traffic congestion along Awolowo Road and the adjoining roads.
The nation's inflation rate and food security is one issue the federal government again attempts to give reassurances.
What are we doing to reduce this and that? I have also mentioned. One of the things is to make sure, first of all, that there is food in the country, supply and demand. That's why we are making sure that we'll do the dry season farming. We know a lot of farmlands have been flooded and we'll lose some crops from the rainy season. So we want to make up for that. So I am assuring you again, there will be no food shortage. We are working on bringing down inflation.
The government is also scrutinizing the frequency of zoonotic diseases, cautioning Nigerians to stay alert as it revises the national animal health policy to trace and prevent the transfer of diseases from animals to humans. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To the judiciary, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, has warned members of the 2023 Election Petition Tribunals that he will not condone any act of recklessness and abuse of power as they discharge their duties relating to the 2023 general elections. The CJN, who read the Riot Act at the swearing-in ceremony for members of the 2023 Election Petition Tribunals, also urged the judicial officers to conduct their affairs within the ambit of the law.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukoyede Agriwola, administering the oath of office on 277 members of the 2023 Election Petition Tribunals at the National Judicial Institute in Abuja.
And I will do right to all manner of people.
These judicial officials will head the various election tribunals across the nation to dispense justice in cases that would arise from the conduct of the 2023 general elections, a task that the country's Chief Justice wants the officers to treat with all seriousness.
This is not an undertaking to be handled with levity. It is a solemn pledge between your lordships and your creator.
The Chief Justice further warns the judicial officers against compromising and other actions that could bring the judiciary to disrepute.
I can confidently tell you that this is a weighty undertaking you have just signed before the Almighty God. I am saying this because, as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, I will not condone any act of recklessness, abuse of power, and public trust. This is a rare privilege, and your lordships must give a good account of yourselves.
A judicial electoral manual is then unveiled. It's a document that the Chief Justice of Nigeria and the President of the Court of Appeal hope will enable members of the Election Petition Tribunal to discharge their duties effectively and reduce conflicting judgments.
In order to forestall the incidences of conflicting judgments and rulings which tribunals and courts have experienced in time past, we have also developed a case management system. The case management system will facilitate research purposes and will guide against conflicting decisions of courts of ordinate jurisdiction.
It's less than 4 months to the commencement of the 2023 general elections, and the electoral umpire and members of the civil society organizations at this event underscore the critical role of the judiciary.
So far, we have been joined in about 600 cases relating to the conduct of recent primaries and nomination of candidates for the 2023 general election. The job of the politician is intensely partisan. Our job, INEC and the judiciary, requires absolute neutrality.
We're looking towards the 2023 general elections. The eyes will be clearly focused on the judiciary as we see the elections conducted and the judiciary play its role in adjudicating free, fair, and credible judicial interventions.
According to the electoral umpire, a total of 30 elections were overturned by the tribunals in 2019, an improvement compared to the over 100 elections that were overturned by election petition tribunals in 2015.
When Newsround returns, Federal High Court in Abuja convicts EFCC Chairman Abdulrasheed Bawa. Join us again. Welcome back. It's up to the courts, where it's not unusual for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, and indeed its officers to file charges against suspected persons, especially those bordering on financial crimes. But this time the hunter becomes the hunted, as Justice Chizoba Oji of the Federal Capital Territory High Court convicted the EFCC chairman, Abdulrasheed Bawa, for contempt of court in relation to his agency's failure to comply with an earlier order of court. In a ruling, Justice Oji held that the chairman of the Anti-Graft Agency is in contempt of the order made on November 21, 2018, directing the Commission to return the sum of 40 million naira and a Range Rover Sport to Air Vice Marshal Rufus Udrawu, a one-time director of operations at the Nigerian Air Force. She also ordered that he should be committed to the Kuje Correctional Center for his disobedience and continued disobedience of the said order, further directing the Inspector General of Police to ensure that the order of court is executed. Our crew caught up with the EFCC boss at his agency's budget defense session at the National Assembly, and here's what he had to say.
Well, we have appealed against it already, so we will allow the natural course of the law to take its effect. We have gotten quite a lot, and we have, of of course, you know, the provisions of POCA provided that each relevant agency should open confiscated and forfeited properties account. We have opened that, and of course, we are remitting all that belongs to the federal government into that account. Of course, other victims of crime are also being paid, you know, based on the recoveries that are made on their behalf. We are building a brand new EFCC academy, and we need funding for that. Last year, 3 billion was allocated, and this year nothing, you know, was allocated for it, and that is why we are pleading to members that we need to have this new EFCC academy, because of course we have to learn. We as fighters of crime, we have to be ahead of these criminals, and the only way you can do that is by training and retraining and retraining and retraining again. It can never end.
Once again, the Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kyari, has lauded the involvement of private securities in the fight against crude oil theft, saying the move is yielding positive results. Mr. Kyari, who spoke of threats to his life, says the cost of securing the pipelines is meager compared to what has been saved from the decision to hire private security networks. He stated this in Abuja during a legislative summit on transparency and accountability in the oil sector.
And gentlemen, having unbundled the petroleum industry through the Petroleum Industry Act, the House of Representatives Committee on Anti-Corruption is holding this summit to create a platform to harp on the need for transparency and accountability in the oil and gas sector.
In the absence of a buy-in by Nigerians, and of course, investors in this sector, it will be very difficult for us as a country to realize the full potentials of this industry.
The transparency that we are all looking for will be seen in all that will happen after today.
The importance of the summit for better governance in the petroleum sector is further emphasized by the invited guests.
Enthroning transparency and accountability in the petroleum industry might seem an arduous task, but we believe in the EFCC that whatever we are determined to achieve is doable.
To effectively and significantly reduce the menace of IFFs from Nigeria, we have to focus on the extractive industry, especially the oil and gas sector.
Corruption and mismanagement continue to deprive Nigerians of economic opportunities, but the oil and gas sector, at the same time, is key to Nigeria's sustainable development.
The Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited had so much to say about oil theft.
This industry is in the threshold of a change. It's a massive change, very expensive, personal cost to many people, including myself. Threats to life, and I can say this, I have several death threats to myself. We have seen connection in a 200-kilometer line. You have up to 295 connections, illegal connection to the pipelines. We are left with no choice than to involve private security contractors. And it worked, because that collaboration at the level of the community and the private contracting complemented our government security agency. They have done great work. That you have a situation where your production came down to about 1.1 million barrels from high of 1.8 about January of last year. Because there are a lot of misconception around the field that when you come down to 1.9, the balance is stolen. No. Because companies will stop injecting oil into the pipeline the moment they discover that it cannot get to the terminal.
The summit is then declared open by the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Senate President, who are both represented. The technical session of the summit will look to address the future of the NNPC and regulations in the energy sector to deepen transparency and effective governance for Nigeria to maximize profit. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Over 65,000 permanent voter cards were destroyed after suspected hoodlums attacked and set ablaze the office of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Abeokuta South local government area of Ogun State. The main building and all the Commission's movable assets in the office were also destroyed, including 904 ballot boxes, 29 voting cubicles, 357 election bags, among others. The resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Ni Jalai, expressed shock over the incident, describing it as unfortunate.
Really unfortunate that our local government office at Abeokuta South was razed by hoodlums, arsonists, in the wee hours of this morning. precisely at about 1:15 a.m., we received a call that the building was set on fire. Immediately we contacted the Commissioner of Police as well as the fire brigade, who rushed to the premises and tried to salvage whatever could be salvaged there. But as you are aware, we got there this morning and we realized that a lot of damage occurred at the premises. A substantial part of the building was destroyed. The roof area was destroyed, the store was destroyed, some items of the commission were equally destroyed.
Following that attack on INEC's facilities in Ogun as well as Osun State, an emergency meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security was called at the INEC headquarters in Abuja. At the meeting, the federal government warns politicians against conduct capable of threatening the peaceful conduct of the polls. The National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, issued this warning, saying that the president has already directed security agencies to deal decisively with any individual or group that wants to undermine the elections.
Occasionally, the National Security Advisor and the Inspector General of Police attend a meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security physically. This time, the issue on ground is serious enough to warrant their presence at this emergency meeting. They are gathered 2 weeks after the previous meeting of the committee. Incidentally, the attacks on the facilities of the electoral body have not abated, more so in the southwest part of the country.
Two developments necessitated this meeting. First, the simultaneous attacks on our local government area offices in Abeokuta South in Ogun State and Ede South in Osun State. Secondly, the spate of attacks during electioneering campaigns by political parties is increasing rather than decreasing. The Commission is worried that if no urgent and decisive steps are taken, the attacks will intensify as we approach the election date.
Over 50 attacks on political rallies have been reported in 21 states across the country in the last month. The recent attacks on INEC's facilities in Ogun and Osun states destroyed 904 ballot boxes, 29 voting cubicles, 65,699 uncollected permanent voter cards, and electric power generators. The development is raising serious concerns, and the security agencies are promising to urgently address it.
Those people who have gangsters working for them, I want to send a very, very clear warning, a categorical, unequivocal warning to each and every one, regardless of whichever party, including the party of the president. For as long as you decide to scuttle the electoral process, you will be visited with appropriate, with commensurate response. I want to assure you, and I'm saying this with all sincerity.
With the incidences so far, arrests have been made, investigations have been conducted, and some suspects have been charged to court. My prayer is for quick dispensation of justice so that it will serve as deterrent and it will also reduce the cases of impunity.
With the 2023 general election in Nigeria less than 4 months away, security concerns continue to mount in the face of attacks on political rallies and INEC facilities across the country. All eyes are on security agencies to respond.
A news round ends in Russia, where the military has completed its withdrawal from Kherson, a lightning-fast retreat of tens of thousands of troops across the Dnipro River in the south of Ukraine. The Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, one of President Vladimir Putin's closest allies, on Wednesday ordered troops to leave Kherson in a pullout that allows Ukrainian forces to move closer to Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014. The Defense Ministry says all Russian forces and equipment had been transferred to the eastern bank of Dnipro, adding that the withdrawal was completed by 5 a.m. Moscow time on Friday. Now, the withdrawal marks one of Russia's biggest retreats in its 9-month special military operation, as Moscow calls its offensive in Ukraine after failing in an initial advance on the capital Kiev and being ousted from the northeastern Kharkiv region in early September. And that's News Round, the recap of stories that made headlines during the week. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun.